Hi guys, my name is Bobby. Welcome back to my channel, and today I'm bringing you my June wrap-up. You'll be happy to know that in the month of June I completed 7 books, which is I think the most I've done in a month this year because everything has sucked since mid-2020 when it comes to my reading. So my reading's back. I've already read 3 books in the month of July, and we are on July 8th. And I've already read 3 books, and so no, I lied, 4. I've already read 4. So we're doing good. So I'm hoping to keep this trend going. And honestly, audiobooks were my friend. And I never thought I'd ever be the one to say that. But that's the only way I've been able to read. I haven't read anything physically in 3 months, something like that. And I decided I'd give audiobooks a try in the month of June. And I read all of these books in the last 2 weeks of June. I just said, well, maybe I'll try audiobooks since I want to keep my hands busy and I can't sit and focus on a physical book, whether that be a physical book or an ebook. So I resubscribed to Scribd. I did Audible for a hot minute and then realized that Audible is just a fucking load of shit. You pay $15 a month to get 1 credit, 1 book. And the rest, yeah, you could do their Plus catalog, but there's nothing I want to read in the Plus catalog, whereas Scribd has a lot of the books that I want to read or that I'm interested in, and it only costs, like $9 a month, so way better. So I did that. I hit up Libby for my local library audiobooks, and I got some through there. So every single one of these books I listened to. Every single one. So I made sure that I was picking books that I owned physically so that I'm knocking off physical TBR. There's one that I read that is not on my physical TBR. The rest for this month is kind of the same thing. I'm trying to knock books off my physical TBR, just I'm listening to them instead of physically reading them. Also, I'm sorry if you can hear my fan, which is behind the camera. It's fucking hot in here, and with the ring light on, also, like, I'm going to die without it. So I apologize. It's on the lowest setting. But again, I apologize if you can hear it. I'm not turning it off. I'm sorry. But should we just get into it? Because this is probably going to be a long-ass fucking video. Per promised, Jamie, who is one of my buds and is in Becca's Patreon Discord, he will be getting his rant. I do have a book in here that I will be ranting about. So let's get on with it. First, I think I'm going to talk about my 1 DNF, which I guess is part of the 7. So I guess I read 6 and DNF'd 1. But I'm going to talk about the DNF first, just so we can get it out of the way. And I'm really sad that I ended up DNFing this book, but I DNF'd Ariadne by Jennifer Saint. This just wasn't the book for me, and I think it was her writing style. And I've seen people say that if you really loved Circe by Madeline Miller, that you would love Ariadne. I didn't even attempt to read Circe. I read Song of Achilles and I really liked it, but everybody said that Circe was written very different. It was more slow there, and all. I'm just like, I don't know if I can do it. So I just did, and I just donated the book. This I heard was similar, but I was like, nah, it'll be okay. I started it and I just couldn't be bothered. I just didn't give a fuck. And it's sad because I know the myth. So like I was hoping that it would be nice to hear it from Ariadne's point of view, and I just couldn't be bothered. Please don't be put off on reading this. Like, so many people have loved it, and I didn't rate it because it was a DNF. I DNF'd it, I think, after 50 or so pages, and I was listening to this on audio, and the audiobook narrator was great. And it's just, I could feel myself zoning out and not paying attention, where lately I found with audio, like, it keeps me really focused. Like, one that I've read in July so far, I was so sucked into listening to the story that my son came in and said something to me, and it literally made me jump because it was an intense part of the book and I was so focused. With this, I could not focus on it. I just kept so I was like, you know what, I'm not going to waste my time. I'm going to DNF it because I've worked so hard to get out of this fucking slump. I don't want to go back anytime soon. So unfortunately, Ariadne was a DNF for me, but please don't be discouraged in reading it. If you loved Circe or even A Song of Achilles, like anything by Madeline Miller, if you like Greek mythology, but you're okay with like kind of a slower moving, flowery writing style, then this is for you. This is probably going to be for you. It just wasn't for me, unfortunately. Next, I'm going to just talk about my reread really quick. I'm not going to go into this very much, but we read Kings of the Wild by Nicholas Eames. This is for me and Vicky and my Random Reads book club that we run over on Goodreads. Every 2 months, we read another book. She's already released our book pick for August onto the Goodreads group, and we will be announcing it like normal in our August TBRs. So if you want to join, go ahead. The one for August is a chunker, so Yeah, I'm going to be listening on audio. I think Vicky and I both agreed we're going to listen to it on audio. But next month is a reread for her. This was a reread for me. Kings of the Wild, I've screamed about for the past 2 years. If you have not read it, please do. It's a great introductory book into fantasy. It tells the story of a band of guys, band of mercenaries in this fantasy world where there is this big span in the middle called the Heartwild that's full of almost any mythical creature you could ever possibly imagine. These guys used to be one of the biggest band of mercenaries there ever was. They're called Saga. Everybody loved them, and then they got older, they broke up, they've all gone their separate ways, and Gabe, who was like the leader of Saga, comes to our main character, Clay's house, and was like, we got to get the band back together. My daughter Rose is stuck on the other side of the Heartwild, and she's in a castle that is being attacked by all these monsters, and we need to go save her. So the whole story of the book is them all getting the band back together and going to save Rose. It has a lot of comedy in it. It's hilarious. It's got a lot of references to like old bands, like more old classic rock bands and stuff like that, like thrown in there. You can very much see the parallels of, a rock band story with these guys. Vicky enjoyed it, which made me really happy. Of course, this was 5 stars again for me. Absolutely adored it. But again, not going to go on too much about this. If you haven't read it yet, please read it. Next, I think I'm going to go into, I'm going to do the one audiobook that I read or that I listened to that I don't physically have. So I was just kind of cruising around and thinking about, what I want to read. And then I stumbled on some Stephen King. Well, I love Stephen King and I've read a lot of his books. There's a lot that I have not read. And audiobooks seem to be a good way to absorb Stephen King stories because, most of his books are like super thick, thousands of pages long. And this one is his shortest and it's his first. So I read Carrie by Stephen King, or listened to Carrie. What was awesome about the audiobook of this was it's narrated by Sissy Spacek, who played Carrie in the original 1974 film. And it was fucking amazing having it narrated by her. She did such an amazing job. It was eerie and atmospheric and kind of different. Actually, a lot different from the movie. While the movie adaptation was really good, I haven't seen the new one. While the original movie adaptation was really good, this one was, the book was different and in a good way. I think I gave it 3 stars. I think it was 3 stars, maybe 4. I can't remember. I gave it 3 or 4 stars, but I read it in a day. I listened to it in a day. It was very quick. And I can see how it was his first book, but you can see certain things in there. If you don't know what the story of Carrie is, the story of Carrie is a story about a girl named Carrie White. It takes place in the 70s, and Carrie has telekinetic powers. She is very abused by her mother. Her mother is very, very psychotically religious. To the point where that's all she does, lives and breathes, like to the point where her religion is abusive to Carrie. Carrie has no friends. She's made fun of all the time at school. If you've ever seen the movie, the classic opening scene in the original film is Carrie taking a shower at school in the locker room, and she starts her period. Blood starts dripping down her thigh. And the scene in the book was very similar because Carrie's mom is so religious and thinks sex is a sin and evil and all that shit. She's never explained to Carrie, who is now 16, what her period is and what to expect. And so Carrie thinks she's dying. She thinks that she's bleeding internally and is dying. And so she's like crying on the floor while these girls are like yelling and screaming at her and throwing tampons and pads at her and stuff like that. It's really sad. So there's definite trigger warnings in here for violence, some gore, and bullying, extreme bullying. And, back in the 70s, bullying wasn't a thing. Oh, kids will be kids is kind of what they said. And you can just see the deep depression and hurt in Carrie, like as she's trying to navigate high school. And it's so sad. The story was good. I liked the ending. And it made me more excited to start reading Stephen King more. I'm not going to do the typical, like, read his books in order. I'm just going to read whatever books I feel like I want to read. And the ones that, like, I've always wanted to read, or I'm going to reread some favorites. Like, I really want to reread Dolores Claiborne. That was one of my favorites when I was an early teenager. So I want to read that one again. I know that one's really dark from what I remember, but it's been a while. So I'm kind of going to go on the Stephen King audiobook journey. Though before anybody says anything, I am not going to be reading the Dark Tower series. I can't stand that fucking series. I tried reading the first Dark Tower book when I was in my 20s and it made no fucking sense. It was confusing. No, I'm not reading the Dark Tower series, but all the other ones, I'm curious, and it's short story collections and stuff that I've just never gotten around to. So we'll kind of see. I'm going to try to sprinkle some here and there, and because Scribd has almost all of his books on audio, so I think that's the way to go. But again, Carrie was great, loved it. It was a great listening experience, and I gave it 3 or 4 stars. Man, I'm moving through this a lot faster than I thought I would. Holy shit. So next, I tackled 2 books from the same author that I really had been wanting to get to for a long time, and for some reason just never picked up. And I adored both of them, one more than the other. But first, I read My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. Grady Hendrix is one of my favorite authors. He's an auto-buy author for me. This one is a favorite of many people. It's kind of become a booktube darling, especially this paperback, which looks like an old 80s VHS tape. So My Best Friend's Exorcism takes place in the 1980s. It follows, who are our main characters? I can't even remember their name. Oh, Gretchen and what is the main character's name? Abby. So Abby's our main character and her best friend Gretchen. They've been best friends since they were little girls. I think since like 2nd or 3rd grade or something like that. They've been the bestest of friends. And then this takes place when they're in their teenage years. I think they're like sophomores or juniors in high school. They go to this like elite private school, and it's very, they're doing their normal teenagery shit since it takes place in the 80s. It's interesting seeing like the stuff teenagers got away with in the 80s that now we're not allowed to do. But the whole basis of this is their friendship, and they're friends with 2 other girls, so they kind of made this like foursome friend group. And one night they're at one of the other girls' houses, and they all decide to drop acid together, and Gretchen just takes off running naked through the woods because the acid's kicked in and she's on a trip. And they go to find her, and they find her kind of battered and broken a couple hours later, and from then on she starts acting different, and they start, Abby starts thinking that her best friend Gretchen is possessed, and then the story kind of goes from there. I love Grady Hendrix because he likes to tackle a lot of real world issues and wrap them into a juicy horror story, and that's exactly what he did here with My Best Friend's Exorcism. In the mid to late 1980s and the early 1990s, there was a phenomenon called the Satanic Panic. If you've ever watched like Unsolved Mysteries or anything like that, they've talked about that multiple times, where there'll be 2 teenagers that got murdered, and usually it's from some random douchebag who murdered them for money or killed the guy, raped the girl, and then murdered her, like just random shit. But back then, everybody was so afraid of Satanism and the Satanic Panic that they just figured it was some satanic cult, which there's not really many satanic cults. They needed somebody to blame. This is kind of like goes in the same vein, where something happens in the book where they're talking about, there's some satanic cult killing animals and doing all this in their area. And so that kind of gets Abby's brain rolling that maybe Gretchen is possessed by a demon. And it's so funny how he talks about like the Satanic Panic and kind of like drags that in. It was really good. I really enjoyed it. There's little hints of The Exorcist in there. You can tell that, he kind of nodded to The Exorcist. It was a really good book. I'm glad I finally picked it up. It read super, super fast. And each chapter is a title of an 80s song, which I really enjoyed. But yeah, I gave this one 4, or did I give it 3? Just check my Goodreads on my tablet, or no, my iPad tablet, same shit, different pile. But I did give My Best Friend's Exorcism 4 stars. Also, I should mention, My Best Friend's Exorcism was a gift. And because I'm a really terrible booktuber and half the time I forget to put the gift slips in the book, this was a gift from Vicky, I believe, for my birthday last year, Christmas maybe, but I'm pretty sure this was a gift from Vicky, from Vicky's Book Nook. Pretty sure. Sorry if it wasn't and somebody else got it, but I'm pretty sure it was Vicky. Always when I'm filming. Why always when I'm filming, Thunder? Thunder, no. So then the next Grady Hendrix book I picked up was Horror Store. This was a gift from Natalia, who's one of my subscribers. Did you also send me My Best Friend's Exorcism? Because on the gift note it says that there's 2. You sent me 2 chilling reads. So I'm gonna feel really bad if this. Oh, are you gonna wait? Now you're just gonna make me hotter. Thunder. Oh. Guess I can't say no. So I get a little Thunder content. Anyways, Horror Store. Horror Store, I gave 3 stars. Horror Store tells the story of, what is her name? I can't remember anybody's names. Okay, I don't care. Amy? Was it Amy? Yes. Horror Store follows our main character, Amy, who works in a store called Orsk, which is pretty much an IKEA ripoff. So they're cheaper than IKEA and stuff like that and all that. And she works there, and stuff starts happening in the middle of the night when nobody's there. Like there's vandalism, stuff starts breaking, there's writing on the wall, stuff like that. So the manager, Basil, asked her and and one other woman to stay with him overnight to try to catch whoever's doing it. And shit rolls downhill from there. This is very much a ghost story, a haunting story. This is very much typical Grady Hendrix in that the formatting is different. He likes to format some of his books a little different. This is formatted just like an IKEA catalog. So let's see, where is it? So here's a chapter start. And so it shows a piece of furniture and it describes it. Listening to this on audio was so fun because the narrator is female, because our main character is female. Yet at every chapter break where it has that description of whatever product, a male reads it almost like an advertisement. It is so funny. This one I read pretty quick as well, but it wasn't as good as a lot of his other books that I've read. It's probably my second least favorite. It wasn't bad and it read fast. It was just, I don't think we got enough time with the paranormal stuff. I found that the end was kind of rushed a little bit. And this one didn't really have much of the social awareness tie-in because this takes place in present day that something else was. I mean, it does make a lot of commentary on corporate life and corporate structure and the rules they put on their employees and the standards and stuff like that, and how it's all about company first, who gives a shit about the employees. So I guess that could kind of be part of the commentary, but it wasn't bad. I really enjoyed it. I just wish we would have gotten a little bit more of the paranormal stuff because that was really, really interesting and I wanted more of that. But it was still really good. I highly recommend it. This one isn't as gory as some of his other ones. Actually, no. This is probably his least gory book that I've read so far. Southern Book Club is probably the most gory I've read so far. This has just a little bit of like exorcism, like gore, where kind of like if you've seen The Exorcist, kind of like that almost. This has, he's got a thing for rats. This has rats in it just like Southern Book Club does. So if you have a trigger for rats, towards the end of this, you're probably going to lose your shit or need to skim. And if you're triggered by any kind of bodily fluid exit, like a gross bodily fluid exiting someone's body and then going into someone else's against their consent, that's not sexual. I guess I can spoil it, but it's not like spoiling it. At one point, ectoplasm, but it is described almost like snot, leaves somebody's nose, travels down their face, crawls up somebody else's and goes into their mouth, I believe. So if that's triggering to you, that probably just triggered you, just saying that. I mean, that's kind of gross. Any kind of, if you have a fear of claustrophobia or drowning in an enclosed space, there's a trigger for that. I mean, it's a horror novel. Like, there's triggers, but this one wasn't as, this was more psychologically fucks with your head more than gore than some, his other ones that were more gory. This is more, I'm gonna fuck with your head now. Way more. Like, they're just the rats, I think, was in that one weird gross scene was it for like gross out. Most of it was literal fucking with your head. So yes, but I really enjoyed it. I love Grady Hendrix's writing. The final girl support group is coming out on Tuesday, so in less than a week. I have it pre-ordered. It should be here hopefully on release day. But yes, if you have not read Grady Hendrix and you love horror, and if you love horror that's different than normal horror, like I just love his stories. Please try and pick him up because he is so good. If I were going to tell you which book to start with, I would say definitely probably start with My Best Friend's Exorcism. This gives you a good taste of his writing, his humor, and what he does with the stories without any gore or Horror Store. But Horror Store is a little bit more scary, I would say, than My Best Friend's Exorcism. Why can't I fucking talk today? Did I disturb you?
I'm sorry.
You are laying like right against my hip and my side, but yes, again, 3 stars. The last 2 books were both very, very disappointing to me. They're both from authors that I've read previously. One was just a huge letdown, disappointment, and the other one pissed me the fuck off.
These are my babies. Those are my babies. You're so cute, my thunder. Those are babies.
So we'll talk about the disappointment first. And unfortunately, which I think I'm going to lower my rating from a 3-star to a 2-star, but I feel bad doing it, but the more I get away from it, the more upset I am about it. And unfortunately, that book is Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Now, I love Taylor Jenkins Reid. I love The Seven Husbands. I love Daisy Jones and the Six. I was so excited for this book, and I didn't pre-order it knowing that it would probably be a book of the month book, and it was my pick for the month of June when it came out. And I read it the second I got it, and I was very disappointed. So Malibu Rising tells a story of the Rivas children, or Rivas. Is it Rivas? Oh, the Riva. Sorry, not Rivas. It's the Riva children, or the Riva children. There's 4 of them, and it tells a story of them. And this entire book takes place in 24 hours. So this entire book is a 24-hour period. Nina is the head of the Riva children, and every year she throws this big party in her Malibu mansion, which is right on the beach. And it's like to be seen, you know, they come from a famous family, so everybody who's anybody goes, and it's this big, huge deal. And so you start the story like at 7 a.m. the day of the party, and then you end it at 7 a.m. the night or the day after the party, so it goes all night long. Like, I don't even know what happened in this book. So you start with Nina as an adult, and the story starts, and you got to know you get a little chapter. The chapters are very short, of her siblings, so you get to meet each of her siblings. She's got 2 younger brothers and a younger sister, which Kit is the sister, and who are the boys? I forgot the boys. Why can't I remember the boys? Jay and Hudson, Jay and Hud. So all these kids are famous. So Nina is a famous like surfer and also like swimsuit model. Jay is a famous surfer, professional surfer. Hudson can also surf, but he is a professional photographer and goes out on like his surfboard and takes pictures of his brother Jay. And then Kit is only like 17 or 18, so she hasn't really done anything yet, but she's also a very good and an accomplished surfer. So when you start out, these kids are adults, you know, these siblings are adults, and you're getting a little bit of their backstory. And then after like the first couple of chapters as you're meeting them, then you jump back in time to the mid 50s when you meet their parents, Mick and what is her name? What is their mom's name? I cannot remember. Mick is their dad, and he's the famous one. Mick is the famous one, and why these kids are all famous and why they all grew up rich, or why they are all rich. And you go back in time to the 50s where Mick meets June, the kids' parents, and you get alternating chapters in the first half of the kids in present day getting ready for this party and dealing with their own stuff. And then you get flashback chapters to Mick and June, how they met, what happened with them, where they're at, and then we kind of progress into where they're at now. And then when you go into part 2 is when the party happens, and then everything's in present day. So the first half was 5 stars. I fucking loved it. I loved hearing about the kids and where their lives are now. I loved hearing about their parents in like the 50s and 60s and how they got to where they are now. That was really fun. I really, really loved that part and enjoyed it. Then we get to the second half when we get to the party. I thought I was gonna like the party part and like what's going on to make everything, you know, terrible. There's one thing that happens during the party where I'm like, oh, well, that's kind of like a big twist reveal. Okay. But then the rest was just shit. You end up getting all these point of views from all these different party goers that have no significance on the story whatsoever. Their opinions, what happens to them, means nothing to the central plot line. And for me, every time we kept jumping to those people and away from the Rivas children, it was distracting. It pulled me out of the story. I'm like, why are we doing this? This makes no sense. And I started getting disinterested. And I was like, I just want to get back to, you know, what the kids are doing and who they're talking to, because their dad shows up at this party. And it's like, I want to see what's going on. And it was just so distracting to keep getting pulled out all the time. It was just disappointing because she writes so much better than that. And I do not understand the point of putting all these extra points of view in that didn't need to be there. The first half of the story was 5 stars. The second half of the story was 2 stars. So I gave it a 3. It's kind of in the middle. I almost want to drop it to a 2. I was so disappointed because I love Taylor Jenkins Reid and I love her writing, and it was so easy to read, and the audiobook was fucking fantastic. I got it on Audible. So good. And then we get to that second half. I'm like, what the fuck are we doing here? I felt so bad. I'm still going to keep it because it's Taylor Jenkins Reid, but I'm really disappointed, and I hope she does better next time because I love the 80s setting. I loved everything about it except for that fucking second half. You could have cut out so much of that second half and made it a shorter book or added more of the family drama. The family drama is what was good. The party shit was boring.
Oh, Thunder. Oh, little baby. You just want cuddles all the time. Cuddles all the time.
And the last book that I read that I gave 1 star to, and is the one I'm going to rant about, and you will get full spoilers, and I was so disappointed and pissed off, was The Maidens by Alex Michaelides. This is the first thriller that I've picked up in over a year. I don't read thrillers much anymore, even though I really love them, because I've started to find that all of them are kind of shitty, and a lot of them are exactly the same. Like, they just follow the same tropes and all that shit, and I can't stand it. So with this one, I was excited. I loved The Silent Patient. The Silent Patient was a 4-star or maybe a 5-star thriller for me. I absolutely loved it. Loved the twist. Just loved the way the story went. Loved his writing. With this one, I was excited. This takes place in Cambridge. Is it Cambridge? Yeah, Cambridge University. And it follows Mariana and her niece Zoe. And Zoe is a college student and she's going to Cambridge. Mariana is a therapist who does like group therapy sessions only, and she does it out of her house a lot. And she is, you know, kind of not world renowned, but pretty famous in her field. And she's recently lost her husband. He died. And, you know, so she's kind of still grieving the loss of him. His niece, or it's her niece, Zoe. Is it her niece? So Mariana's niece, Zoe, who her and her husband helped raise when her parents died, is going to Cambridge, and she calls her aunt Mariana and was like, I need you. I'm really upset. A friend of mine's gone missing. I think she's been murdered. Or no, she hadn't been found missing. They found her body. She's been murdered. I'm really upset. Can you please come? Because she thinks that it's this Greek tragedy professor. Like, she thinks that he did it. Zoe thinks that he did it. And then she convinces Mariana that, you know, he's probably the one that did it. And it's kind of got vibes of Secret History by Donna Tartt, which I still haven't read. But it's kind of got some Secret History vibes, and mixed in with dark academia, which I guess is also that. But the Secret History has the close-knit circle Greek. I don't remember if was it Greek mythology? I don't know. I haven't read the fucking book. But this has the very close-knit group of students that follow this professor religiously, and they're called the Maidens. They're this group of girls that kind of worship him. And so that kind of makes Zoe further convinced that he's done it. And so she gets Mariana in on it, and so Mariana's convinced, and I'm going to find a way to prove that this guy killed them, or killed these girls, because other girls that are the Maidens start being killed off. Because Zoe's friend was also a Maiden. She's the one that's dead at the beginning, and then other girls start getting killed off from this group. So, you know, of course, it's got to be the Greek professor. Must be. I'm going to start spoiling, so here we go. Spoiler alert, it was not the Greek professor that was killing everybody. It was Zoe, her niece, who brought her there. And the reason she was doing it's so fucking convoluted. I'm fine with twists that are kind of out there, as long as there was a path that I could follow to get to that conclusion. If this, you know, conclusion comes all the way out of left field and there's nothing really to explain it, I don't give a fuck. It's gonna piss me off more than anything, and that's exactly what happened here. I was fucking pissed off. So I'm gonna set this down. My arm's getting tired. So Zoe was killing these girls to get Mariana to come because she was mad at the professor, and the whole point was that she wanted Mariana, her aunt, who raised her, to come there so she could kill her for her money. Because Mariana is rich. Her dad ran this like big shipping business and had a whole bunch of money. He was very frugal. So when he passed away, she got all this money. She's never spent it. She's just kind of hoarded it. And her husband had some kind of plans, but then he died. So it's for the money. So what made it so unbelievable and that pissed me off so fucking much. Okay, I can believe that Zoe could be the killer. Like, anybody could really be the killer. But the reasoning for why she was killing them off was stupid. You're going to kill off these girls to bring me here so that, and then convince me that that the teacher was doing it to blackmail him for no reason. Like, he gave you a bad grade. What? Like, so you're going to blackmail him so that you could kill me. It just makes no sense. And the reason Zoe wanted her dad besides the money is that she was having an affair with Mariana's mom, with her uncle, not biological uncle, but with her uncle, 4 years. And the plan was he was going to kill Mariana and then collect all of her family's money because they're married. And then him and Zoe were going to get married and go off together. So since he died in an accident, Zoe wanted to continue on his plan to kill her for the money, even though he's no longer here. Excuse me, what? First of all, Zoe is like 19. The husband died like 2 or 3 years ago. So you're telling me that at 15, 16 years old, this girl was fucking her uncle, her non-biological uncle, but still fucking her uncle, and they were plotting together to kill her aunt? I mean, I guess that's very possible. I've watched a lot of Deadly Women. It is possible. But at the same time, it's just not that plausible. So, and she had the brain power to still continue on to do this. It does not make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to me why, first of all, why her husband, when he could have just killed her and got the money himself, why he felt the need to bring her into it, to bring this child into it. And then it was just so fucking stupid. I was so mad. Because it was so dumb and he was so fucking stupid. I was hoping for something, I don't know, something better, like a better twist. Like, I loved his twist in The Silent Patient, and I was hoping that I'd get something like that. This was fucking dumb. Dude died like 3-4 years ago. So when he died and you guys were plotting this, you were a kid. You were a child. You were a literal child. And this woman who raised you. And it was funny because Zoe made the comment that she had known her husband for years before he died and all this stuff. And they'd been planning it for years and had been together for years before he even married her. That is not possible. She was a literal child. There's no way a 12-year-old kid or a 13-year-old kid knew this grown-ass adult man that had nothing to do with her life before, wasn't a teacher, wasn't a this or a that could be in her life. They were connected and had a sexual relationship, or were all together, and she convinced him, or they convinced each other, oh, well, I'm going to marry your aunt and then be your uncle and help raise you, and then we'll kill her and be together. That is so fucking far-fetched and dumb. Like, it's just not happening. Now, if the child was like 16, 17 when they met on the outside before they got married. No, they got married when she was like a young-ass kid. There's no way they knew each other before. Had been planning it for years. I just can't. Because Zoe made the point to say, I knew him before you did. So you were a literal child. So are you just a child genius? Like, she's a normal person. There was no mention of any kind of disability or anything that would suggest she's anything older than her actual age. I can't. Like, I couldn't do it. I'm like, this is fucking dumb. This is fucking bullshit. This is getting 1 star. And it sucks because I love The Silent Patient. And I know most people hate The Silent Patient. I've heard a lot more animosity towards The Silent Patient than The Maidens. The Silent Patient, while it did have kind of a far-fetched twist, was still believable to me. I could still believe how that would happen. I mean, it was kind of out there, but the pieces kind of fit together better. This did not. This was trash. I am donating this. Like, I am so mad. So mad because this cover is gorgeous. I love this cover. I loved his other book. But this was fucking stupid. Like, I can't. And it was slow to get there, too. It was not as engaging as The Silent Patient was. Do yourself a favor. Don't read this. Just don't. I'm so mad. So mad. I was so disappointed. And thankfully, I'm glad this didn't slump me. I thought it was going to. Because this was, like, toward the end of the month. So I think this was book, like, 4 that I read. 4 or 5. So, but thankfully it didn't. That's when I think when I picked up Horror Store and it got me out of it. But, like, I can't. This book fucking sucks. Okay, guys, that's it. That is my June wrap up. I've been filming for almost 40 minutes. Hopefully I can trim some of this shit out. Hopefully it wasn't too long-winded. I am so excited that my reading's back and that I'm reading again. It's been so nice. And, like, the amount that I'm reading, just audiobooks, man, like, I'm so excited. I'm glad I'm, like, knocking books off my shelves that I have. Like, I've been reading some of my Book of the Month books that have been sitting here forever. So I'm just happy all the way around. My birthday's in 2 days. I'm officially on vacation starting today. I have 10 days off. I got plenty of time to read. So I feel so much better. I feel like getting back into the swing of things. I'm starting to feel normal. We're fully open where I live. So I'm starting to feel like things are getting back to normal, and I'm starting to feel a little bit more normal. So maybe that's kind of lifting the depression and all the shit I had that carried over from 2020. So hopefully this book slump is fucking done and over with. But 7 books, well, 6.5 because I DNF'd the one, is a good start, is an awesome start, and I can't wait to read more. Please let me know in the comments down below what you read for the month of June. If you've read in these books, if you read any of them, please let me know what you thought about them, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.